All right, so you guys were supposed to have done all the line drawings, sort of the what I call the constellations, right? And coming up with the geometry. So you started with the points that you made from that script, and then you started to work in um, a pattern looking for some type of technique and then repeating that technique, right? So there was no right answer for that. It was you sort of looking at your own project and interpreting a way to create some type of geometry. So the next thing now is, so we looked at points, lines, and now we're going to look at surfaces, okay? So what you guys are going to be doing next, I'm going to make a layer, call it curve 01. What you're going to do now is start to think about this as how would you start defining a surface to make some type of volume. And what we're going to do, we're still working within this box, and there's going to be two criterias. First criteria is going to be we're trying to make a closed form. So if you can imagine your bladder or your stomach, right? Understand your stomach? You ever seen your stomach? Not your actual stomach, but a diagram of it, right? It's sort of like a bladder that has two ends, right? In and out. So the one criteria is make two openings. Okay, so you have to have two openings minimum, and then you're trying to make some type of inflated form. Okay, so what that means is you typically want to have two openings located either perpendicular to each other or parallel. So if we have our imaginary, we're still working with this imaginary box idea. So we might say we're going to have an opening here and an opening here, right? But we won't look at this right away, but ultimately we're going to try to make some type of inflated form within that, okay? So where we're going to start is trying to make sort of surfaces that start to define this form. So it's like this really sort of loose plastic form, okay? And I'm going to start doing this with now drawing new curves to then eventually make surfaces. So the technique, the tool I'm going to use is under curve, freeform, interpolate points. Interpolate points. What that allows me to do is pick points and draw a line. So I'm using my snap. Maybe in this case I'll use endpoint. And I'm looking for maybe volume, so I'm maybe using geometries that produce that. So that's maybe my first line. Okay. And then I'm going to do a second line. So now I'm trying to define with that curve geometry a surface. Okay, so I'm going to take this surface now, and what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to draw a line. I can also draw a curved surface here potentially. So I can go curve, free point, interpolate points. So I have a curve there. Then I can do the same, maybe even here. Okay. What I'm going to use then to draw that as a surface is under surface, curve network. So what I'm going to do is pick those curves. I needed 4 sides, hit OK, and it's going to draw that curve. Alright, so let's say that's going to be surface 1. So let's go to, we'll make another, we're calling them curve now. They could have been surface, but that's fine. We're not arbitrary. We're you know, what's not arbitrary? Everything is arbitrary, but there's some type of, right?
They're not associated with previous stuff.
Well, you're using that to sort of give you guidelines for the inflation, right? So I'm not snapping to nothingness.
But this also in this program, like you have an object separate, you just put it on different layers.
Yeah.
The only thing to do, not
Yeah.
like a block or anything.
We could do that later, but it's like AutoCAD layers are easiest. Start with layers, yes. So I'm going to make another. So I'm going to start there. So I'm going to use that as maybe a starting point. And I'm going to say that's sort of maybe an end point. Oops. Do it again. So let's try that. In this case, I just have 3 curves. So I'll say surface, curve network. Okay. Well, that one's getting really torn up. So this is where you're like, well, maybe that was too aggressive. But since I have the shape there now, what I can do is just redraw that by using this point. So I might come back. Hey, call the cops. Tell her we found her. Call them off. Oh, and also, but that's fine. You're going to see what we're going to do in a minute to sort of fix a lot of this. All right, so we have that. I might then, this might end up being one of my openings now. Here, so I'm going to draw, freeform. So this is going to be one of my openings. Now it's not getting as inflated as I want over here. So this is where we can maybe fudge it. So I can see it. I wanted to inflate it. So if I go into a top view, and am I being arbitrary? No, I didn't want to make that form there. So it's not being arbitrary. Like, right? Everything is arbitrary, right? But, it's like designing a shoe for a foot, We don't wear shoes that look like our feet, right? They're stylized beyond even comfort, right? So if we're going to top view, if we hold down the control key once we click to somewhere, we can then control the elevation in a front view. So I'm holding down the control key. So now I have a point in midair that I feel pretty confident about. Which is there. And then I might just go right to that point, and I'll pick. Now I really don't need curved networks here. We can even do a loft, but just do surface, curved networks. Typically you need 3. Yeah, so it won't let us do that. So let's we can just do a loft. So that's a loft. So our other opening was going to be down here. So let's make that opening a little bit larger. Or I guess more like a sliver. So we have that. Then I'm going to take, could just take that. So I'm looking at closing this up now, right? So now I have this, oops, not that. That. And then my last surface if we want to just go with it is that, and that. That got a little bit. We'll probably have to restitch that, but this is the idea. Now I've made my inflated form. Okay. So this is what you are doing next. Okay. So you're doing this on your own, yeah? What we're going to do after this is we're going to redraw all these surfaces as triangulations. So we can flatten it. And then you guys are going to make models. I'm going to show you. Remember I showed you those models? You're going to make foam models out of this. So if we flatten it, after we triangulate it, we produce a new geometry that can be unrolled. So it's constructible. This is not easily constructible in the sense that it's doubly curved surfaces. Does that make sense? So this is what you're doing for today. And then this you should be able to do fairly quickly. So I want everybody to have this done in 1 hour. Because what we're going to do next is start triangulating it and unrolling it and making the patterns. And you guys are going to bring in next week foam models of this. Okay? Because ultimately, hopefully the MakerBots will make it here on time. Because we're going to be also printing these things. Because we're going to put patterns on these things and make, like openings that are representing something like apertures. So, and we're going to use Grasshopper for that. So we're going to take this thing back into Grasshopper. Okay? All right.